Hey everyone! Today we're diving into a fascinating topic, the impact of Mesopotamian culture on Israel during the Iron Age. Now, the Iron Age is a period in history that lasted from around 1200 BCE to 333 BCE, starting when iron first became widely used and ending when Alexander the Great rose to power in the ancient Near East. This era follows the Bronze Age and is part of the three-age system developed by a Danish archaeologist Christian Thomsen in the 1800s. Even though iron was used earlier, most historians stick with this timeline. Some argue that the Iron Age should end with the rise of Cyrus of Persia, but that's a debate for another day. The Iron Age in Israel can be divided into 6 subcategories. To really understand what was happening in Israel during this time, we need to look at both biblical accounts and archaeological evidence. Archaeologists categorize their findings from the ancient Near East into 3 main groups: archaeology, epigraphy, and literature. This means they look at physical artifacts, inscriptions, and written texts. Together, these pieces help us build a clearer picture of life back then. Let's talk about the Sea Peoples. The Iron Age in Israel began after the fall of the Hittite and Egyptian empires at the end of the Late Bronze Age. Excavations in places like Ashdod and Tel Mikne-Ekron have uncovered artifacts from this period. These finds suggest that groups from the Aegean region, known as the Sea Peoples, settled in Canaan and might have been the ancestors of the Philistines. Whether the Israelites were part of this group is still a hotly debated issue. Most scholars agree that the Sea Peoples played a significant role in the settlement of Canaan and the Transjordan. Modern archaeologists have found evidence of settlements in Shechem and Gideon through artifacts like houses, grain remains, silos, cisterns, cooking pots, and metal tools dating back to the Iron Age IA. However, they haven't found much evidence from main sites mentioned in the book of Joshua, such as Gilgal, Jericho, to support a southern entrance during this phase. The Bible and an Egyptian inscription known as the Merneptah Stele, the earliest non-biblical reference to a people called Israel, suggest that the Israelites first appeared in Canaan during the Iron Age. This makes the period a matter of ongoing debate between biblical scholars and archaeologists. And the Iron Age IB phase corresponds to the time of the Judges, a period depicted in the book of Judges. This was a challenging era for the Israelites, filled with political, religious, and social turmoil. Early settlement in a land already occupied by various ethnic groups is never easy, and the Israelites faced significant difficulties. For about 200 years, Israel was ruled by judges. During this time, they grappled with 2 main issues: their relationship with Yahweh and their interactions with their neighbors. The Book of Judges provides a vivid picture of this turbulent period, showing how the Israelites struggled to maintain their identity and faith amidst constant threats and internal conflicts. Moving into the Iron Age 2a, we see the establishment of the monarchy, marking a clear distinction from the period of the Judges. This phase, up to the 9th century BCE, was characterized by extensive royal construction, including cities, palaces, fortifications, and the use of ashlar masonry. The monarchy was seen as a necessity for protection from external threats. If Egypt had still controlled the area, establishing a monarchy would have been considered an act of rebellion. The monarchic era began with Saul and continued through the reigns of David, Solomon, and Rehoboam. During the reigns of King David and King Solomon, Israel enjoyed strong international relations and peak military and economic stability. Archaeological evidence from this time shows cultural exchanges with the Neo-Hittite, Canaanite, Phoenician, and Egyptian cultures. Biblically, Solomon's reign is often seen as a period of prosperity, bolstered by control of key trade routes and agricultural wealth. However, the biblical authors viewed Solomon's foreign marriages and international dealings critically, interpreting them as acts of political strategy or sin, depending on the perspective. While these marriages strengthened political alliances and secured Israel's position, they were seen as violations of religious commandments in the biblical narratives. Understanding the social and political realities of the Iron Age, Tua reveals that Israel had little choice but to engage in international affairs to ensure its survival and stability. After the reign of Solomon, his son oversaw the split of the kingdom into two separate states, Israel in the north and Judah in the south. Although this division brought internal peace, external threats began to loom over both Israel and Judah during the 9th and 8th centuries BCE, primarily from Aram and Assyria to the north. One significant event was the conflict between King Jehu of Israel and Shalmaneser III of Assyria. This is depicted on the Black Obelisk, an artifact discovered in the 1800s. The Black Obelisk shows King Jehu and other Assyrian vassals offering tribute to Shalmaneser III. This evidence suggests that this was the first recorded interaction between Israel and Assyria. Another major event occurred towards the end of the 9th century or the early 8th century BCE during the reign of Jehu's son, Jehoahaz. According to 2 Kings 13 and archaeological surveys, Jehoahaz faced the consequences of his father's actions against the house of Omri, which had left Israel without allies and vulnerable to foreign threats. After the death of Shalmaneser III, the Assyrian Empire struggled to control its vassals, allowing Aram to seize control of Israel. Jehoahaz sought Assyrian assistance, and Adad-nirari III responded, rescuing Israel from the Aramaeans as confirmed by a stele found at Tel el-Rima in Iraq. Assyrian threats. Moving into the Iron Age, 2b, the 8th century BCE was marked by significant threats from the Assyrians. Evidence of these threats comes from Assyrian inscriptions by Tiglath-Pileser III and Sargon II, as well as biblical accounts in 2 Kings 15. These sources describe the failed Syro-Ephraimite war against Assyria, led by King Pekah of Israel and King Rezin of Syria, and King Hoshea's vacillating submission to Sargon II. King Ahaz of Judah, seeking protection from Pekah and Rezin, submitted to Assyrian lordship and requested help from Tiglath-Pileser III. The Assyrian king marched south, marking the first time Judah became an Assyrian vassal. Archaeologists have found layers of destruction with pottery shards dating to Tiglath-Pileser III's campaign. Consequently, both Israel and Judah were subjugated to Assyrian rule and forced to pay tribute, while Syria became an Assyrian administrative center. During the Iron Age 2b, Mesopotamian influence in Israel became significant, particularly in the realm of law. Between 740 BCE and 640 BCE, the covenant code found in the Book of Exodus was created, heavily inspired by the laws of Hammurabi. When we compare their structures and content, it's clear that the authors of the covenant code had access to and used a copy of Hammurabi's laws. Another noteworthy event during this period involved King Hoshea of Israel. He was accused of treachery after sending tribute to the Egyptian pharaoh instead of the Assyrian monarch, as was customary. This act of disloyalty was seen as resistance and infuriated Sargon II, the Assyrian ruler at the time. This led to Sargon's intervention in Israel and the first exile of the Israelites to Assyria around 722 BCE, as recorded in various inscriptions. And the conflict between King Hezekiah of Judah and the Assyrian monarch Sennacherib is another significant event from this period. It is documented in 4 different sources: Isaiah 36-37, I Kings 18, the Sennacherib Prism, and the writings of Herodotus, the 5th century Greek historian. During this time, Assyria remained the dominant power in the ancient Near East, and Jerusalem was still paying tribute to the empire. Heavy taxation to Assyria caused deep frustration among the people of Judah, who sought an alliance with Egypt to break free from Assyrian control. When Sennacherib learned of this new alliance, he launched a punitive campaign around 701 BCE. This campaign is described in the Book of Kings and Sennacherib's own account, known as the Sennacherib Prism. Written in Akkadian, the prism details how Sennacherib besieged Jerusalem and deported about 200,000 people, including their animals. And the Iron Age 3. A phase began with the reign of King Manasseh in the 7th century BCE. As detailed in the Book of Kings, King Josiah undertook a national restoration and expanded the kingdom following the death of the Assyrian monarch, Assurbanipal. Internal conflicts within the Assyrian Empire allowed the Chaldeans, under Nabopolassar, to seize control. This period of relative peace in Judah is supported by archaeological evidence, showing an increase in settlements and expansion in the Judean and Negev desert margins. The final phase of the Iron Age in Israel, Iron Age 3b, is marked by the Babylonian exile and its aftermath. Textual and archaeological evidence from sites like Gibeon, Mizpah, and Bethel, as well as the appointment of a Judean governor by the Babylonians, highlight this period. Despite the destruction of the temple by Nebuchadnezzar II and the exile to Babylon, life in Judah continued. The aftermath saw minimal changes in Jerusalem. Family life, cultural traditions, economic activities, and values persisted, even with the elite groups removed. And archaeologists and biblical scholars have worked to unravel the complex relationship between Mesopotamia and Israel during the Iron Age. The evidence suggests a relationship fraught with conflict, yet marked by significant influence. Mesopotamian political structures, legal systems, and religious practices left a lasting impact on Israel. For example, the description of kingship in Israel, as found in the Book of Samuel, parallels an Akkadian document outlining the rights of a king. Israel's civil laws show similarities to the Code of Hammurabi. Additionally, various myths in the Hebrew Bible/Old Testament reflect Mesopotamian mythology. Assyrian monarchs and their military presence in Israel, the flourishing of Mesopotamian literature, and Israel's involvement in the international affairs of the ancient Near East all shaped its political and religious systems. Over more than 3 centuries, Israel never fully escaped Mesopotamian control. Even as they transitioned from theocracy to monarchy, Israel never became a major power in the region, remaining subordinate to surrounding empires. Israel's geographic location, between Egypt to the southwest, Mesopotamia to the northeast, and Syria to the north, was a strategic yet challenging position that exposed it to influence and domination by powerful neighbors. Among these, Mesopotamia had the most profound impact on Israel during the Iron Age.